The afternoon sun hangs golden and warm over the ancient city of Alexandria, casting long, gentle shadows across the harbor where ships from distant lands rest quietly at their moorings. You have traveled far to reach this place, this jewel of the ancient world, and now, as your feet find the smooth marble steps that lead upward from the bustling streets, you feel anticipation settling into something softer, something more like peace. Before you rises the great Library of Alexandria, its facade of pale stone glowing in the honeyed light, columns rising like ancient trees toward a sky of the clearest blue. The noise of the city, the calls of merchants, the laughter of children, the creaking of cartwheels begins to fade behind you as you climb, step by step, leaving the world of commerce and hurry below. Here, at this threshold, everything slows. The air itself seems different, carrying with it the faint scent of papyrus and lamp oil, of old paper and quiet stone. You pause for a moment at the great entrance, where massive doors stand open in welcome, and you can see beyond them into the cool shadows of the interior, where marble corridors stretch away into peaceful dimness. This is a place of gathering, a place where the wisdom of generations has been collected and preserved, where scholars from every corner of the known world come to read and learn and wonder. And today, you are among them. You step forward, crossing from the bright afternoon into the gentle shade of the library's entrance hall, and immediately you feel the temperature drop, the coolness of thick stone walls providing relief from the Mediterranean heat. Your footsteps echo softly on the polished floor, a quiet rhythm that seems to announce your presence without disturbing the profound calm that fills this space. Ahead of you, the corridor opens into a wider hall, and you can see shelves built into the walls, alcoves filled with scrolls, each one carefully rolled and tagged, each one containing stories, histories, philosophies, poems. The light here is different from the harsh brightness outside. It filters through high windows, softened by the passage through thick glass, creating pools of warm illumination that seem to float in the air. And there, emerging from one of these pools of light, comes a figure, an elderly man with a long white beard, wearing robes of simple cream-colored linen, his eyes bright and kind, despite the many years they have witnessed. He moves with careful dignity, his sandaled feet making barely a whisper against the marble, and as he approaches, he smiles, a smile of welcome, of recognition, as though he has been expecting you. This is Theon, a scholar of the library, a keeper of knowledge, and your guide on this journey into the heart of Alexandria's greatest treasure. Theon inclines his head in greeting, and when he speaks, his voice is soft and measured, like the turning of ancient pages. "Welcome, traveler," he says, "to the Library of Alexandria. You have come seeking knowledge, perhaps, or simply seeking peace. Here, you will find both in abundance." He gestures gently with one hand, inviting you to walk beside him, and together you move deeper into the corridor, your pace unhurried, matching his own deliberate steps. The walls on either side are lined with niches, each one cradling scrolls of papyrus, their edges slightly darkened with age, their surfaces marked with the careful script of long-ago scribes. This library, Theon continues, his voice barely louder than a whisper, is home to hundreds of thousands of texts, works of philosophy and poetry, mathematics and medicine, astronomy and history. Everything that humanity has learned, has wondered, has dreamed, it lives here, preserved in these quiet halls. As he speaks, you notice the quality of silence in this place. It is not the empty silence of a vacant room, but rather a living silence, a silence filled with presence and potential. Somewhere in the distance, you can hear the faint scratch of a stylus on papyrus, the soft rustle of a scroll being unrolled, the gentle clearing of a throat. These sounds do not disturb the peace, they enhance it, creating a texture, a rhythm to the quietness. You pass an open doorway, and inside you can see a scribe bent over a manuscript, his hand moving with patient precision as he copies line after line of text. The afternoon light slants through a high window, illuminating the dust motes that drift lazily in the air, each one catching the golden light and glowing like a tiny star. "Our scribes work from dawn until the light fails," Theon tells you, following your gaze. "They are the guardians of knowledge, ensuring that what has been written will not be lost to time. Each stroke of their brushes is an act of preservation, an act of love." You continue walking, your journey taking you past chamber after chamber, each one dedicated to a different branch of learning. In one room, shelves rise from floor to ceiling, packed with scrolls bound with ribbons of faded red and blue. In another, long tables are arranged where scholars sit in quiet contemplation, their eyes moving across ancient words, their lips sometimes forming the syllables silently as they read. The light continues to play its gentle game, streaming through the high windows in great columns of brightness, soft and warm and endlessly peaceful. You feel your breathing slow to match the rhythm of this place, your shoulders dropping, the concerns and hurries of the outside world falling away like unnecessary garments. Here, in the Library of Alexandria, time moves differently. Here, there is no rush, no urgency. There is only the quiet accumulation of understanding, the patient turning of pages, the gentle whisper of knowledge passing from one mind to another across the centuries. Theon leads you now into a larger chamber, a space so vast that its far corners are lost in gentle shadow. This is one of the main halls of the library, and it takes your breath away, not with any sense of overwhelming grandeur, but rather with a feeling of profound rightness, of perfect balance. The ceiling arches high above, supported by columns of smooth marble that seem to grow from the floor, like ancient trees in a sacred grove. Between these columns, the afternoon light creates patterns of brightness and shade, a slow dance that shifts almost imperceptibly as the sun makes its patient way across the sky. All around you, scrolls rest in their designated places, organized according to a system that Theon begins to explain in his gentle, unhurried voice. We arrange the texts by subject and by origin, he says, his hand moving to indicate different sections of the Great Hall. Here, the works of the Greek philosophers. There, the mathematical treatises from the scholars of Athens and Syracuse. Beyond, the poetry of distant lands, translated with great care into Greek, so that all who visit may understand. As he speaks, you notice details that might have escaped your attention at first glance. The way each scroll is tagged with a small piece of parchment, marked with identifying information in neat script. The way certain sections of shelving are marked with symbols, a star, a tree, a wave, to help scholars navigate the vast collection. The way the floor itself is inlaid with subtle patterns, geometric designs in stone of slightly different colors, creating pathways that guide the eye and the feet through the space. You move slowly along one of these pathways, Theon at your side, and as you walk, you become aware of others in the hall. There, an elderly woman in robes of faded blue, her hair covered with a simple cloth, reaches up to retrieve a scroll from a shelf, her movements careful and reverent. Near one of the windows, a young man sits cross-legged on the floor, a scroll unrolled before him, his face absorbed in concentration, his lips moving soundlessly as he reads. In an alcove set into one of the walls, two scholars converse in whispers, their heads bent close together, sharing some insight or question. No one hurries, no one speaks loudly. The atmosphere is one of shared purpose and mutual respect, a community bound together by love of learning and a deep appreciation for the privilege of being here, in this place, surrounded by so much accumulated wisdom. The sunlight continues its gentle work, highlighting now a section of shelving, now the profile of a reading scholar, now the beautiful grain in one of the marble columns. Shadows deepen in the corners of the hall, but they are not threatening shadows. They are restful, inviting, suggesting quiet corners where one might sit and read in perfect solitude. The library welcomes all who come with sincere hearts, Theon says softly. Scholars and students, philosophers and poets, the young and the old. Here, all are equal before the texts. All are learners. All are seekers of truth. His words seem to echo gently in the vast space, joining with the quiet sounds of pages turning, of feet whispering across stone, of breath drawn in wonder. You continue your gentle exploration, moving from the great hall into a smaller chamber, more intimate in scale, but no less filled with the quiet magic of this place. Here, the work of the library reveals itself in closer detail. Along one wall, a series of desks are arranged, and at each desk sits a scribe, engaged in the patient work of copying manuscripts. You and Theon approach quietly, not wishing to disturb their concentration, and you watch for a long, peaceful moment as the closest scribe dips his brush into ink, taps it gently against the rim of the inkwell, and then applies it to the fresh papyrus before him. Each character takes shape slowly, deliberately, the curved lines and straight strokes building letters, words, sentences. The scribe's face is calm, focused but not tense, his breathing steady and even. There is something deeply meditative about watching this work, something that quiets the mind and slows the heart. The art of copying requires great patience, Theon murmurs beside you. A single text may take weeks or even months to reproduce, depending on its length and complexity. The scribes must be accurate, of course. Every word must be preserved exactly as it was written in the original, but more than that, they must bring reverence to their work. They are not merely copying words, they are transmitting knowledge across time, ensuring that what one generation learned will be available to the next, and the next, and the next. You notice the tools of the scribe's trade, the inkwells of dark clay, filled with black ink made from soot and gum, the brushes with their fine tips, crafted from reeds that grow along the Nile, the papyrus sheets themselves, their surfaces smooth and slightly golden, ready to receive the marks that will transform them from blank material into vessels of meaning. Beside each scribe's desk is a stand holding the original manuscript from which they are copying, the ancient text propped at an angle for easy reference. Some of these originals show their age, their edges frayed, their surfaces stained, but all are treated with the utmost care, handled as the precious objects they are. The light in this smaller chamber is softer than in the great hall, filtered through fabric hung over the windows to prevent the harsh afternoon sun from causing glare or discomfort. This diffused light creates an atmosphere of gentle dimness, restful to the eyes, conducive to long hours of careful work. You can hear, very faintly, the scratch of brushes on papyrus, a sound that is surprisingly soothing, like rain on leaves or the whisper of wind through grass. It creates a rhythm, subtle and constant, that seems to pulse through the room like a heartbeat. One of the scribes looks up briefly, noticing your presence, and offers a small, peaceful smile before returning to his work. There is no sense of intrusion, no feeling of being unwelcome. Instead, you feel included in this quiet fellowship, a temporary member of this community of preservation and care. Theon places a gentle hand on your shoulder. "Come," he says quietly. "There is more to see, but we need not hurry. The library has stood for generations, and it will stand for generations more. We have all the time we need." And so you move on, your footsteps soft, your mind already beginning to match the peaceful rhythm of this place, this sanctuary of knowledge, this haven of quiet. The afternoon is aging now, growing richer and more golden as the sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon. You follow Theon back through the corridors, retracing some of your earlier steps, but seeing everything anew, as though the changing light has transformed the library into a slightly different place, even more peaceful, even more dreamlike than before. The marble walls seem to glow from within, warmed by the amber sunlight. The shadows have lengthened and softened, creating pools of gentle darkness that invite rest and contemplation. You pass other scholars as you walk, and each one seems to embody the spirit of this place, unhurried, thoughtful, at peace. An old man with a scroll tucked under his arm nods to you in greeting as he passes. A young woman sitting on a stone bench beside a window looks up from her reading and smiles, her face illuminated by the golden light. Two scholars deep in quiet conversation pause to let you pass, their discussion resuming in gentle whispers once you have moved on. Theon brings you finally to a window alcove, a small recess in the thick stone wall where a bench of carved wood offers a place to sit and rest. You settle onto the bench, grateful for the chance to pause, and Theon sits beside you, his old bones grateful too, perhaps, for the respite. Together you look out through the window, and the view is magnificent, the city of Alexandria spreading out below, the rooftops golden in the late afternoon light, and beyond them, the harbor with its lighthouse rising tall and proud against the deepening blue of the sky. The Mediterranean stretches to the horizon, its surface catching the light, glittering like scattered gold coins. "This is my favorite time of day in the library," Theon says softly, his voice almost dreamy. The morning has its own beauty, bright and full of promise. But the afternoon, as it fades toward evening, has a particular quality. Everything softens, everything stills. It feels as though the library itself is settling, like a great creature finding its rest after a day of wakefulness. You understand exactly what he means. The quality of light, the lengthening shadows, the sense of peaceful completion, it all combines to create an atmosphere of perfect tranquility. Behind you, deeper in the library, you can still hear the faint sounds of scholarly activity, the whisper of scrolls, the soft footfalls, the occasional murmur of a voice. But these sounds seem distant now, muted, as though they come from another world entirely. Here, in this window alcove, with the golden light streaming in and the view of the ancient city spread before you, you feel completely at peace. Your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the library itself, deep and even and calm. Your thoughts, which may have been busy and scattered when you arrived, have settled like sediment in still water, leaving your mind clear and quiet. Theon sits beside you in comfortable silence, his presence reassuring, asking nothing, simply sharing this moment of beauty and rest. The sun continues its gentle descent, and the light shifts moment by moment, degree by degree, painting the world in ever-changing shades of gold and amber and soft rose. And you sit, and you breathe, and you feel yourself becoming part of this place, part of its ancient rhythm, part of its peaceful, eternal present. And after a time, though time itself seems to move differently here, more slowly, more gently, Theon rises from his place, and with a quiet gesture, invites you to follow him deeper into the library's heart. You stand, feeling the peaceful stillness of the afternoon still within you, and you walk beside him, leaving the bright corridors behind. The light changes as you move inward, becoming softer, more diffused, filtered through narrow windows set high in ancient walls. The air grows cooler, quieter, as though you're moving not just through space, but through layers of silence itself, each one deeper and more complete than the last. Theon walks with the slow, measured pace of someone who has walked these passages thousands of times, who knows every turn, every threshold, every subtle shift in the quality of light and shadow. And you match his pace, feeling no hurry, no urgency, only a gentle curiosity and the deep comfort of being guided by someone who understands this place in his very bones. The marble beneath your feet is worn smooth by centuries of scholarly footsteps, and your own footfalls make barely a whisper against the stone. You pass through an archway, and then another, and the corridor opens into something vast, the scroll chambers. Your breath catches softly at the sight, not in excitement but in quiet awe, the kind that settles rather than stirs. The room stretches before you, its dimensions difficult to grasp in the gentle dimness, long and high-ceilinged, with rows upon rows of wooden shelves rising from floor toward the shadows above. And on every shelf, in every alcove, rest the scrolls, thousands of them, tens of thousands, each one carefully rolled, each one labeled in Greek or Latin or Egyptian hieratic script, each one containing words written by hands long turned to dust. The silence here is profound, but it's not empty. It's a silence full of presence, full of patient waiting, as though the scrolls themselves are breathing, so slowly, so quietly, that you can barely sense it, but it's there nonetheless. Theon pauses, allowing you to simply stand and witness, to let your eyes adjust to the dimmer light, to let your heart settle into the rhythm of this place. A rhythm that is barely perceptible at first, but gradually you begin to feel it. The slow pulse of preservation, of care, of knowledge held safe across the centuries. A scholar moves between the shelves, far down the length of the chamber, a figure in simple robes, carrying a scroll with both hands as though it were something precious beyond measure. Which of course it is. You watch as the scholar pauses, consults a tablet, then carefully, so carefully, places the scroll in its designated place. The motion is unhurried, almost ritualistic in its gentleness. There is no rushing here. There is no need for speed. The work of preservation is measured in patience, in attention, in the steady accumulation of small, careful actions repeated day after day, year after year, generation after generation. Theon begins to walk again, and you follow, moving between the rows of shelves. The wood is old, dark, polished by time and touch. The smell of papyrus surrounds you, dry, slightly sweet, mingled with cedar and myrrh, the preserving oils and resins used to protect the ancient texts. It's a scent that speaks of care, of devotion, of the quiet determination to hold back time's erosion just a little longer, to keep these words alive for future eyes, future minds, future hearts. And as you walk, you notice how the light falls in soft shafts from the high windows, illuminating dust motes that drift like tiny stars through the still air, golden and slow and hypnotic in their gentle dance. You continue deeper into the chambers, room flowing into room, each one similar yet subtly different, each one holding its own particular collection of wisdom. Geography in this section, Theon mentions softly, gesturing to the labels written in careful Greek script. Maps and itineraries, descriptions of distant lands, the measurements of the known world. His voice is barely above a whisper, not from any rule of silence, but simply because loud speech would feel wrong here, intrusive, a disruption of something sacred. You pause before one shelf, and Theon carefully withdraws a scroll, unrolling just a small portion to show you the contents. You see a map, hand-drawn with remarkable precision, showing coastlines and rivers, mountains rendered in careful parallel lines, cities marked with tiny symbols. The ink is faded but still legible, brown against the cream-colored papyrus, and you can see where the cartographer's hand moved, where the pen lifted and touched down again, where small corrections were made. This is not just information preserved, it is the living trace of a human mind at work, thinking, deciding, creating. Theon rolls the scroll closed again, with practiced gentleness, and returns it to its place. The work of cataloging, he says, his voice like a soft wind through distant reeds, is never truly finished. There are always new acquisitions to record, old scrolls to repair, labels to update as our understanding grows. We are not merely guardians of what was written, but interpreters, organizers, weavers of connections between one text and another. A scroll on Egyptian mathematics here, he touches one wooden case, might illuminate a text on Babylonian astronomy there, he gestures across the aisle. And so we note these resonances, we create finding lists, we build invisible bridges between minds separated by centuries and cultures. You nod slowly, understanding settling into you like sediment drifting down through still water. This is not the work of days or months, but of lifetimes, of many lifetimes, overlapping and continuous, each scholar building upon the work of those who came before, leaving their own contributions for those who will come after. It is a kind of immortality, perhaps, not of the individual, but of the endeavor itself, the patient, endless work of understanding and preservation. Another scholar appears from between the shelves, carrying a tablet covered in wax, stylus in hand. She nods quietly to Theon, then to you, and continues past, her footsteps silent on the worn stone floor. She moves with that same unhurried grace you've noticed in everyone here, as though haste itself has been left at the library's threshold, forbidden entry into these calm precincts. You watch her until she disappears around a corner, into yet another chamber, and you realize that you could wander here for days and never see all the rooms, never count all the scrolls, never exhaust the quiet wonders held within these walls. Theon guides you onward, and you pass through another archway, into a chamber where the light is even softer, almost amber, coming from windows covered with thin linen curtains that filter and gentle the afternoon sun. Here, several scholars work at a long table, so absorbed in their tasks that they don't look up as you pass. One is carefully unrolling a damaged scroll, examining a torn edge with infinite patience. Another makes notes on papyrus, copying information from the scroll before him, his hand moving slowly, forming each letter with calligraphic precision. Another simply reads, lips moving almost imperceptibly, following the ancient Greek text line by line, absorbing meaning that has waited centuries to be understood again. The scratching of reed pens on papyrus creates a subtle, rhythmic sound, a whisper of friction, of ink flowing, of knowledge transferring from one surface to another. It's hypnotic, that sound, barely audible but constant, like the breathing of the library itself. You stand very still, not wanting to disturb this concentration, this peaceful industry, and you simply watch and listen and feel yourself settling even deeper into the particular quality of time that exists here. Time continues its slow unwinding, and you follow Theon through chamber after chamber, each revealing itself like a quiet secret, a gift offered without fanfare. Philosophy here, he murmurs, and you see scrolls labeled with names that echo through history. Plato, Aristotle, Heraclitus, Pythagoras, alongside many others whose names are unfamiliar, whose thoughts have been lost to the wider world but are preserved here, waiting patiently for readers who may never come, or who may arrive centuries hence. It doesn't matter. The library holds them all with equal care, makes no judgment about which wisdom is greater or lesser, but simply keeps and keeps and keeps. The repetition of the chambers begins to work on you like a gentle rhythm, like waves lapping on a distant shore. Another room, more scrolls, more careful labels, more scholars moving quietly between the shelves. Another room, the light slanting differently through different windows, but the essential character the same. Peace, patience, preservation. Another room, the smell of cedar stronger here, or perhaps myrrh, or perhaps simply the accumulated scent of ancient papyrus, that particular perfume of time itself. You notice that your breathing has slowed to match the pace of this place. Deep and steady, unhurried, each breath drawn in fully, each breath released completely, and in the space between breaths, a stillness that goes down and down into some quiet center of yourself you'd almost forgotten existed. Theon seems to sense this shift in you, and he slows even further, pausing longer between rooms, allowing you to simply be present, to let the atmosphere of the scroll chambers seep into you like water into thirsty ground. In one chamber, you see a scholar seated on a low stool, a scroll open across his lap, but his eyes are closed. At first, you think he might be sleeping, but then you notice the quality of his stillness. It's not the slackness of sleep, but the particular alertness of thought, of internal contemplation. He is thinking about what he has read, turning it over in his mind, examining it from different angles, letting it settle and connect with other things he knows. This too is part of the work here. Not just the reading, not just the copying and cataloging, but the deep, slow thinking that wisdom requires. The patience to sit with an idea, to live with it, to let it gradually reveal its full meaning. Theon touches your arm gently, and you continue walking, leaving the contemplating scholar to his inner work. You pass more shelves, more alcoves, more small niches, where individual scrolls rest in specially constructed cases, protected from light and air and the erosive passage of time. Some of these cases are very old themselves, the wood dark and smooth, the bronze hinges green with patina. Others are newer, replacements for cases that finally succumb to time's inevitable wearing. But new or old, each is made with care, constructed to last, to protect, to preserve. The chambers seem endless, and you realize that this is by design, or perhaps not design exactly, but natural growth, room added to room as the collection grew, as more texts arrived from across the known world, brought by ship and caravan, purchased or copied or gifted, all finding their way here, to these quiet chambers where they could rest and be tended and be available to minds hungry for understanding. The library grew organically, like a living thing, responding to need, expanding to embrace more and more knowledge, and the result is this beautiful labyrinth of learning, this peaceful maze where it would be impossible to feel lost because every wrong turning simply leads to more wonders. You walk, and the gentle repetition, another chamber, another set of shelves, another scholar, another pool of soft light, creates a kind of meditative trance. You're not sleepy exactly, but deeply relaxed, your mind quiet, receptive, held safely within the rhythm of this place. The scroll chambers enfold you, and you let them, surrendering to their ancient, patient peace. Eventually, though time has become so fluid that you cannot say how long you've been walking, Theon leads you to a chamber that feels different from the others. Smaller, more intimate, with cushioned benches along the walls and a series of reading stands arranged in a rough circle. "This is where we gather sometimes," he explains softly, "to discuss what we've discovered, to share insights, to help one another understand difficult passages. But most of the time, it serves as a resting place, a quiet spot to simply sit among the texts and feel their presence." He gestures toward a bench, and you sink down onto the cushions, grateful for the chance to rest, though you haven't felt tired, just peacefully absorbed in the rhythm of walking and observing. Theon settles onto another bench across from you, and for a while, neither of you speaks. The silence is comfortable, companionable, the silence of two people who need nothing from each other except the simple sharing of space and peace. From where you sit, you can see through an archway into the next chamber, where row upon row of scrolls stand in their cases, and beyond that, through another archway, another chamber, and perhaps another beyond that, the perspective creating a sense of infinite depth, of knowledge extending beyond sight, beyond comprehension, and yet somehow manageable, somehow held safely within these walls. It's a comforting thought that the vastness of human learning can be housed, can be tended, can be kept safe for future generations. That it doesn't all scatter and disappear like leaves in autumn wind, but remains, endures, waits. A scholar enters the chamber, nodding politely to both of you, and selects a scroll from one of the shelves that line even this small resting room. She takes it to one of the reading stands, carefully unrolls a portion, and begins to read, her posture attentive but relaxed, her face showing the particular expression of someone absorbed in text, slightly distant, eyes moving steadily across the lines, mind elsewhere, mind centuries away, walking through whatever landscape the words create. You watch her for a while, then let your gaze drift back to Theon, who has closed his eyes, though you sense he's not sleeping, merely resting, or perhaps thinking about the texts he knows so well, the words he's read and reread over decades of patient study. His face is peaceful, lined with age but serene, and you think about the life he's lived here, the countless days that have flowed together into a single continuous stream of learning and contemplation and quiet satisfaction. It seems like a good life, a life of purpose and peace, removed from the noise and urgency of the world outside these walls, devoted instead to the timeless work of understanding. The light in the chamber is growing slightly dimmer, you notice, not dramatically, but degree by subtle degree, as the afternoon ages toward evening. The quality of the light changes from gold to something softer, more amber, more honeyed, and the shadows in the corners of the room deepen just a little. The pace of the day itself seems to be slowing, settling, preparing for the transition into dusk. But there's no hurry, no sense of time running out or tasks left undone. Just the natural, gentle progression from one phase to another, as inevitable and peaceful as breathing. You close your own eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the library settle around you. The distant whisper of a scroll being unrolled, the faint scratch of a pen on papyrus from somewhere deeper in the chambers, the almost imperceptible creak of wood, the building itself shifting microscopically as it has shifted for centuries, settling into its own weight, into the earth beneath it. And beneath all of that, or perhaps containing all of that, the profound silence. Not absence of sound, but a presence in itself. A silence that holds everything gently, that makes space for small sounds without being broken by them. When you open your eyes again, Theon is looking at you with a gentle smile, and without speaking, he rises, inviting you with a gesture to continue your exploration. You stand, feeling even more relaxed than before, as though the brief rest has allowed the peace of this place to sink even deeper into your bones, your blood, your breathing. You follow him out of the small chamber and back into the labyrinth of scrolls. But now, the walking feels different, less like a journey toward a destination and more like a meditation in motion, each step an end in itself, each chamber a complete moment requiring nothing more than simple presence. The light continues to soften as you walk, the golden afternoon glow gradually cooling toward the gentler tones of early evening. The scholars you pass seem even quieter now, moving like shadows, like thoughts drifting through the library's consciousness. One climbs a ladder to reach a high shelf, moving with careful deliberation, each rung tested before weight is committed. Another kneels before a low cabinet, withdrawing scrolls one by one, examining labels, making notes, replacing them with the same patient care. The work continues, as it has continued for generations, as it will continue for generations more, an endless river of attention and devotion flowing through these chambers. You pass through a chamber where the scrolls are arranged by language, Greek giving way to Latin, then Aramaic, then Demotic Egyptian, then languages you don't recognize, scripts that look like nothing you've ever seen, characters flowing in directions your eye can't follow. The diversity is staggering, and yet it all coexists peacefully here. All these different ways of thinking and speaking and writing held together in one vast collection, speaking to some fundamental unity beneath the surface differences. Knowledge, the library seems to say, belongs to everyone, Wisdom wears many faces, but speaks ultimately to the same human heart. Theon pauses before a particular shelf, running his fingers along the wooden edge with obvious affection. These scrolls, he says quietly, are among our oldest. Some date back nearly 600 years to the library's founding. They are fragile now, despite all our care. We handle them rarely, and always with the greatest reverence. But they remain, they endure, and that itself is a kind of victory over time, a kind of gentle defiance of entropy and forgetting. You nod, understanding the weight of what he's saying, the quiet triumph of preservation. 600 years. Empires have risen and fallen in that time. Cities have been built and abandoned, languages have evolved and died, and yet these scrolls remain, still legible, still capable of transmitting the thoughts of minds turned to dust centuries ago. It's a kind of magic, you think. Not the dramatic magic of transformation and fire, but the quiet magic of endurance, of care sustained across generations, of the determination to remember. The chambers continue, and you continue through them, and gradually you notice that your sense of being a separate observer is fading. You are not watching the library anymore. You are part of it. Your footsteps are part of its rhythm, your breathing is part of its silence, your presence is woven into the tapestry of all the presences that have walked here, studied here, devoted their lives to this work of preservation and understanding. The boundary between you and this place grows thin, permeable, and then dissolves altogether, and you are simply here, fully here, held safely in the accumulated peace of centuries. Theon leads you finally to a chamber where the evening light falls through western windows in long, low beams, illuminating the dust motes into rivers of gold suspended in amber air. The beauty of it is almost heartbreaking in its simplicity, and you both stand still, watching the light, watching the slow dance of particles too small to see except when light reveals them. And you think about how much of existence is like this, invisible until the right light falls upon it, and then suddenly radiant, suddenly miraculous, suddenly worthy of silent awe. You stand still, watching the light, watching the slow dance of particles too small to see except when light reveals them, and you think about how much of existence is like this, invisible until the right light falls upon it, and then suddenly radiant, suddenly miraculous, suddenly worthy of silent awe. And as you hold this thought, cradling it gently in your mind, Theon gestures toward a doorway you hadn't noticed before, an archway carved with vines and pomegranates, and beyond it, you glimpse something that makes your breath slow even further. Greenery, dappled light, the unmistakable shimmer of water catching the afternoon sun. The garden, he says softly, where the mind comes to rest between journeys through knowledge. And you follow him through the archway, leaving the corridors of scrolls behind, stepping from the world of preserved words into a living sanctuary where breath itself seems easier, where the air tastes of growing things and moisture and peace. The transition is gentle, like waking from one dream into another, deeper dream. The garden unfolds before you in layers of tranquility. First, a path of pale stone, smooth beneath your feet, then flowering plants you cannot name, but whose scents reach you in subtle waves, sweet and green and faintly spiced. There are palms rising tall and graceful, their fronds moving in a breeze so gentle you feel it more than see it, a whisper against your skin, a soft exhalation from the garden itself. And there is water. You hear it before you see the fountain, a sound like continuous, gentle laughter, like the softest conversation, like something that has been speaking this same soothing syllable since the garden was planted and will continue long after you have gone. The fountain stands at the center of a small courtyard, its basin wide and shallow, filled with water so clear you can see every tile at the bottom, each one painted with geometric patterns in faded blues and golds. The water rises from the center in a low, unhurried arc, falling back upon itself in endless, patient repetition, and you find yourself drawn to it, mesmerized by its constancy, its faithfulness to this one simple, beautiful task. Theon leads you to a bench carved from limestone, positioned in the dappled shade of a pomegranate tree, and you sit, and the stone is cool through your clothing, solid and real, and somehow deeply comforting. From here, you can see the whole garden. Not large, but perfectly proportioned, walled on all sides by the library itself, a hidden heart within the vast body of learning. Other scholars are here, scattered throughout the space like figures in a peaceful painting. Some sit alone, eyes closed, faces turned toward the filtered sunlight. Others converse in pairs, their voices so low you cannot make out words, only the gentle rise and fall of quiet discussion. Questions asked without urgency, ideas offered without insistence. One elderly woman sits by the fountain, trailing her fingers through the water, watching the ripples spread outward, and you realize she has perhaps been sitting there for an hour or more, content with this simple meditation. This study of concentric circles and the way water returns always to stillness. Time in the garden moves differently than it does in the scroll chambers, differently than anywhere else you've been. It seems to pool and eddy, to become visible like the water in the fountain, something you can watch flowing past without ever feeling rushed by its passage. You sit on the stone bench and you breathe, and each breath seems to take longer than the last, filling you more completely, releasing more thoroughly. The air here is alive with subtle scents. The green growing smell of leaves and stems, the earthiness of damp soil in terracotta pots, the faint sweetness of jasmine blooming somewhere just out of sight, and underneath it all, still, the papyrus and ink scent of the library itself, as if even here the scrolls breathe through the walls. A small bird lands on the edge of the fountain, a creature with brown feathers and bright eyes, and it dips its beak into the water, tilts its head back, drinks, and you watch this simple act as if it contains profound meaning, which perhaps it does. The meeting of thirst and water, need and satisfaction, expressed in the smallest possible terms. The bird flies away, and your eyes follow it upward to where the sky shows above the garden walls, impossibly blue, the blue of lapis lazuli ground fine, of deep ocean in sunlight, of everything peaceful and vast and endless. A few clouds drift across your vision, moving with the same unhurried grace as everything else here, and you think you could watch them for hours, tracing their slow shape-shifting, their gradual dissolution into the blue. Beside you, Theon has closed his eyes, his face composed in an expression of such complete peace that you feel honored to witness it, as if you've been permitted to see something usually kept private, the inner tranquility of a life devoted to learning and contemplation. His hands rest loosely in his lap, and his breathing is so slow and regular that you find your own breath falling into rhythm with his, matching his inhalations and exhalations without conscious effort, your bodies finding a shared tempo, a shared stillness. Elsewhere in the garden, two younger scholars converse quietly beneath an arbor covered in vines. You cannot hear their words, but you can hear the tone, thoughtful, exploratory, gentle. They are not debating, but discovering, following ideas wherever they lead, pausing frequently to consider, to sit with uncertainty, to acknowledge the limits of their understanding. One gestures slowly with an open palm, as if offering a thought rather than insisting upon it, and the other nods, slowly, thinking, taking the idea and turning it over in the spacious silence between them. This is what philosophy looks like when it is not performance, but genuine seeking, quiet, patient, humble before the vastness of all that cannot be known. The fountain continues its soft soliloquy, water speaking to water in a language older than words. You focus on the sound, letting it fill your awareness, noticing how it is not actually one sound, but many. The initial splash as water meets water, the quieter trickle as it slides down the sides of the basin, the faintest whisper of movement through air, all blending into a chorus that somehow never becomes loud, never becomes anything but soothing. It is the sound of time made audible, of continuity, of something that does not strive or struggle, but simply persists in being what it is, perfectly, completely. The light is changing now, subtly, but unmistakably, the way it does in the hours when afternoon begins its slow, graceful bow toward evening. The sun has moved behind the upper stories of the library, and the garden receives now a softer, more diffused illumination, golden but gentle, amber but not insistent. Shadows have grown longer, stretching across the pale stone paths like dark water, pooling beneath benches and trees, gathering in corners where walls meet. You watch this transformation with a feeling that approaches reverence, this daily miracle of light in motion, the faithful turning of the world revealing itself even here in this sheltered place. The quality of the silence has changed too, deepened somehow, become more present. Even the quiet conversations have faded. The scholars have fallen silent or departed. And now you see only three other figures in the garden besides yourself and Theon, and all are still, resting, perhaps sleeping, perhaps simply being in that state between sleep and waking, where the mind floats free and time becomes meaningless. The fountain seems louder now in the deeper quiet, or perhaps you are simply more attuned to it, your attention no longer divided, but focused completely on the sensory gifts the garden offers. Water and light and the soft movement of palm fronds overhead, the faint fragrance of earth and growing things, the solid coolness of stone beneath you and the warm air against your face. You are aware of your body in a gentle way, aware of how it sits, how it breathes, how it exists peacefully in space, requiring nothing, striving for nothing, simply present in this moment that seems to expand outward in all directions, infinite and yet contained, vast and yet intimate. A leaf detaches from the pomegranate tree above you, spinning slowly as it falls, catching the golden light and then releasing it, catching and releasing, until it lands softly on the stone beside your feet. You watch it settle, watch it become still, and in that stillness you see the whole of its journey, from bud to green growth to this final autumn color, from clinging to letting go, from tree to ground. Everything contains its whole story if you look with patient eyes, if you sit long enough in peaceful attention. The garden teaches this, you realize. The garden is a teacher more patient than any scholar, more eloquent than any scroll. It teaches presence and acceptance. It teaches the beauty of cycles and seasons. It teaches that wisdom sometimes looks like an old woman sitting by water, that enlightenment might be nothing more than truly seeing a leaf fall, that peace is not something to be achieved, but something to be recognized, here, now, in the dappled light, in the sound of water, in the breath moving through your body like a gentle tide. Theon opens his eyes slowly, as if returning from a great distance, and he looks at you and smiles, a smile of such warmth and understanding that you feel seen in a way that does not discomfort but comforts, seen and accepted and welcomed exactly as you are. We come here, he says quietly, to remember what matters. In the scroll chambers, we preserve the thoughts of others, the wisdom of ages past. But here we remember our own thoughts, our own small wisdom, our own presence in the great unfolding story. Here we remember that we too are part of what is being written, what is being lived, what is being continuously created. And you nod, understanding without needing more words, sitting together in the growing amber light, two beings among millions who have sat in gardens throughout time, seeking and finding the same simple, profound peace. You could stay here forever, you think, in this garden where time has become honey thick and golden, where each moment pours into the next with such liquid grace that you cannot tell where one ends and another begins. The light continues its slow dance, shifting and softening, and you shift and soften with it, your body settling more completely into the stone bench, your mind releasing thoughts as easily as the tree released its leaf, letting them fall away into the quiet, into the sound of water, into the enormous peaceful space that seems to open up inside you when you stop trying to fill it with anything at all. The elderly woman by the fountain has not moved, or perhaps she moved and returned, you cannot be certain. Time has become too fluid to track such details. But she is there, still trailing her fingers through the water, still watching ripples spread and fade, and you realize that she is practicing something, engaged in a discipline as rigorous as any scholarly study, the discipline of paying attention, of being fully present, of witnessing the simple, continuous phenomena of existence without judgment or analysis, or the need to make meaning. Just watching, just being, just allowing the water to be water, and herself to be herself, and the moment to be exactly what it is. You try this too, letting your gaze rest unfocused on the garden as a whole, not looking at any one thing, but allowing everything to simply exist in your awareness. The palm fronds moving overhead, the play of light and shadow on stone, the fountain's endless gentle conversation, the subtle gradations of color as the amber light deepens toward the warmer tones that precede sunset, the shapes of the scholars, still and peaceful, part of the garden's composition, like the trees and benches, human presence blending seamlessly into the natural world. And you feel yourself becoming part of this composition too. Another element in the peaceful arrangement, another witness to the afternoon's slow transformation. And there is deep comfort in this, in being part of something larger than yourself. Part of a pattern that has repeated countless times and will repeat countless more. Gardens and light and water and human beings seeking moments of tranquility in the midst of their brief lives. Your breathing has become so slow and deep that you barely notice it anymore. An automatic gentle rhythm like the fountain, like the swaying palms, like the movement of light across the sky. Your heartbeat too has slowed, steady and calm, requiring nothing from you, maintaining the quiet engine of your life while you rest, while you simply exist in this space between the walls of ancient knowledge. The garden holds you. The afternoon holds you. The stillness holds you with infinite gentleness, infinite patience, asking nothing, offering everything. This moment, this breath, this play of golden light through green leaves, this sound of water falling into water, this feeling of being exactly where you are meant to be, held safely in the turning world, surrounded by centuries of seeking and finding, question and answer, wisdom and wonder, all compressed into the simple, profound reality of now. Theon's eyes have closed again, his face in the amber light looking ageless, as if he could be any age or all ages, a scholar from centuries past or centuries yet to come, time collapsing in his peaceful features into a single eternal moment of rest and contemplation. You let your own eyes close, just for a moment, and behind your lids the garden remains, printed in patterns of light and shadow, the fountain still speaking, the palms still swaying. Everything continuing its gentle existence, whether you watch or not. The world going on, being beautiful, being peaceful, being exactly what it is in this sanctuary of learning and rest. When you open your eyes again, though you're not certain they were ever fully closed, the boundary between seeing and not seeing has become as fluid as everything else. The light has shifted once more, taken on the quality of honey poured through amber glass, thick and golden and impossibly rich. The kind of light that seems to have texture, to have weight, to fill the air between things as much as illuminate them. This is the hour when the day begins to consider its ending, not with sadness, but with a kind of satisfied completion, a fullness like the feeling after a deep breath has been held and then gently released. The garden glows. There is no other word for it. It glows from within, every leaf and stone and surface of water catching the low-angled light and holding it, reflecting it back, transformed into something warmer, softer, more alive. You can see particles in the air now, just as you could in the corridor of scrolls, but here they seem less like dust and more like golden pollen, like visible blessings drifting on currents too subtle to feel, settling on your skin, your hair, your eyelashes, coating you with the gentle evidence of time's passage. The fountain has become a sculpture of light, water, and illumination, so intertwined that you cannot separate them. Is the light making the water beautiful, or is the water making the light visible? Both, perhaps. Neither. The question itself seems unnecessary here, where beauty simply exists without requiring explanation or analysis. You notice small details now that you missed before, or perhaps they are newly arrived with this particular quality of light. A spider's web stretched between two stems, each thread burning silver gold in the horizontal rays. A small lizard on the sun-warmed stone, its sides moving with quick breaths, its eyes half closed in contentment. A pattern of fallen petals near the base of a clay pot, arranged by chance into something that looks deliberate, artful, a mandala created by wind and gravity, and the natural falling of things when their time has come. Everything is teaching you. Everything is speaking in the language of presence and impermanence, and the beauty that exists in the space between. Theon stirs beside you, a slow return to full wakefulness, and he looks around the garden with the same wonder you feel, as if he is seeing it for the first time despite having visited this place, perhaps thousands of times over his long years at the library. The light makes everything new, he murmurs, and you understand that he is not just talking about the garden, not just about this moment, but about awareness itself, about the way attention transforms the ordinary into the miraculous, the familiar into the sacred. You could walk through the same door every day for a lifetime, and still, if you truly see it, truly notice it, it becomes new, worthy of wonder, deserving of reverence. The afternoon is ending, but it is ending so slowly, with such grace, that ending seems too harsh a word. It is transforming, shifting, offering itself forward into evening the way the fountain offers water back to itself, a continuous giving that is also a receiving, a continuous movement that is also perfect stillness. You feel no sadness at the day's passage, only gratitude for having witnessed it, for having sat here in this garden while the light performed its daily miracle, for having breathed this air and felt this stone and heard this water and existed, however briefly, in perfect peace within the walls of the greatest library the world has ever known. Soon you will rise. Soon Theon will lead you back inside, into the halls and chambers where evening duties await. But not yet, not quite yet. For now you sit in the golden light, in the deepening amber glow, in the sanctuary of the scholar's garden, and you are exactly where you are meant to be, held in the gentle arms of the passing day, surrounded by wisdom both written and lived, both preserved and present, and you are at peace, completely, utterly, perfectly at peace. And now, as the amber light begins to deepen into something softer, something closer to gold mixed with shadow, Theon rises slowly from the stone bench and with a gentle gesture invites you to follow him back toward the library's interior. You stand, feeling the pleasant heaviness in your limbs that comes from sitting in warm sunlight, from breathing deeply in peaceful company, and you walk beside him along the garden path, past the murmuring fountains one last time, past the swaying palms that whisper their quiet farewells to the fading day. The transition from garden to building is so gradual, so gentle, that you barely notice when cool marble replaces warm stone beneath your feet, when the scent of evening flowers gives way to the familiar, comforting aroma of papyrus and lamp oil. You move through a wide corridor, and already you can see the difference that dusk makes in this ancient place. The strong afternoon light that once poured through the high windows has softened, mellowed into a golden haze that seems to hang in the air itself, suspended like honey, like amber, casting everything in a glow that feels both nostalgic and timeless. Theon leads you forward, his sandals making the softest whisper against the floor, and you follow, moving deeper into the library's heart, toward the great reading halls where the scholars gather for their evening work. And as you walk, you notice that the library feels different now, transformed by the approaching evening into something even more sacred, even more still. The sounds are gentler, softer, there are fewer footsteps, and those you do hear move with quiet purpose, with the unhurried dedication of those who know exactly where they belong. You pass archways that open onto smaller rooms, and in each one you glimpse the preparation for evening. A scholar carefully adjusting a lamp wick, another laying out fresh papyrus, someone else simply sitting in quiet thought, hands folded, eyes closed, gathering themselves for the peaceful work ahead. Everything moves in slow rhythm. Everything breathes with patient purpose, and you feel yourself slowing too, your breathing deepening, your thoughts settling like silt in still water, finding their natural resting place. Theon pauses at a wide doorway, and with a small, knowing smile, he gestures for you to enter. You step forward, and before you opens the most magnificent sight, the great reading hall, vast and columned, filled with rows of tables and benches, lined with endless shelves of scrolls, and everywhere, the warm, flickering glow of oil lamps being lit one by one by one. A scholar moves along the perimeter with a taper, touching flame to wick, and each lamp blooms into gentle light, adding its warmth to the growing constellation of illumination. The effect is hypnotic, watching the darkness retreat softly, not conquered but invited to remain at the edges, creating pools of shadow between the pools of light, a rhythm of brightness and dimness that feels like breathing, like the gentle pulse of the library's own ancient heart. You move into the hall with Theon, walking slowly between the long tables, and you see that scholars are already settling into their places for the evening. Each one chooses their spot with quiet care, some preferring the tables nearest the lamps, others seeking the softer light at the room's edges, and still others positioning themselves near the high windows where the last traces of natural daylight linger like a memory. like a promise of tomorrow's sun. They arrange their materials with gentle precision, unrolling scrolls carefully, weighing down the corners with small polished stones, setting out reed pens and ink pots, positioning lamps at just the right angle to illuminate their work without strain. Every movement is deliberate, unhurried, part of a ritual performed countless times before, a ritual that connects this evening to every evening that has come before it in this hall, in this library, across the turning years. You watch as a young scholar smooths a papyrus scroll flat, her fingers moving with such tenderness, such respect, as if the text itself were something alive, something that might respond to gentle handling with deeper revelation, with hidden truths. Nearby, an older scholar sits perfectly still, eyes closed, hands resting on a closed scroll before him, and you understand that he is preparing himself, gathering his concentration, entering that quiet inner space from which true study emerges. The sounds in the hall are minimal but deeply soothing. The soft rustle of papyrus as scrolls are unrolled and rolled again. The quiet sigh of scholars settling onto wooden benches. The barely audible whisper of reed pen across parchment as the first careful marks are made. The occasional soft footstep as someone moves to retrieve a different text from the shelves. And beneath it all, so subtle you almost don't notice it at first, is the sound of breathing, the collective breath of dozens of scholars breathing together, slowly, calmly, creating a rhythm that fills the hall like a tide, like a gentle wind, like the pulse of shared purpose. Theon guides you to a bench along one wall where you can sit and simply observe. And as you settle onto the smooth wood, you feel the day's tension, whatever small concerns you brought with you, dissolving, melting away like mist in morning sun. You breathe in the scent of lamp oil and papyrus, of aged wood and stone, and somehow even the air tastes peaceful, ancient, wise. Your eyes move slowly across the hall, taking in the scene lamp by lamp, scholar by scholar, and each detail adds to the growing sense of calm. A woman with silver hair bent over a mathematical text, her lips moving silently as she works through some elegant proof. A young man carefully copying a philosophical treatise, his hand moving with meditative slowness, each letter formed with devotion. Two scholars sitting side by side, sharing a single lamp, occasionally leaning close to whisper some insight or question, their voices so quiet they barely disturb the air. This is the evening rhythm of the library. This is the sacred pattern of dusk settling into night, and you are here to witness it, to be held by it, to let it carry you deeper into calm, deeper into peace, deeper into the gentle, welcoming embrace of this timeless place. The light continues to change, continues to deepen, and you watch it happen with dreamy attention, noticing how each passing moment brings a subtle shift in the quality of illumination, in the balance between the fading daylight from the windows and the growing strength of the lamps. The windows, those high rectangular openings that earlier today poured bright sunshine across the marble floors, now hold only a pale violet-gray glow, the last whisper of day. And even as you watch, that glow dims further, softens further, until the windows become dark rectangles, portals to the night sky, where the first stars are beginning their own patient vigil. And as the natural light fades, the lamplight seems to strengthen, not brighter exactly, but more present, more essential, claiming the space gently, filling it with warm amber radiance that flickers ever so slightly, creating the most subtle dance of light and shadow across the walls, across the faces of the concentrated scholars, across the surfaces of the ancient scrolls. You notice how the lamplight loves certain things. It gathers in the curves of the clay oil vessels, pools in the hollow of a scholar's throat as he bends over his work, glides along the rounded edges of the papyrus scrolls, gleams softly on polished wood and smooth marble. The scholars continue their work with such steady focus, such peaceful dedication, that they seem to have entered a state beyond ordinary wakefulness, a state of calm alertness where time moves differently, where hours can pass in what feels like moments, or moments can expand to hold entire worlds of thought and insight. You hear the soft scratch of pen on papyrus, a sound so regular, so rhythmic, that it becomes like music, like a lullaby written in the language of learning, in the vocabulary of patience. You hear the whisper of breath, the occasional quiet rustle of fabric as someone shifts position, the barely audible creak of a wooden bench settling under steady weight. And sometimes, breaking the silence like a stone dropped gently into still water, you hear a small sound of satisfaction, a soft hum, a quiet sigh, an almost inaudible murmur, as a scholar reaches some small understanding, solves some modest puzzle, makes some connection between one text and another, between one thought and the next. These sounds do not disturb the silence. Rather, they seem to deepen it, to make it richer, more textured, more alive. Theon sits beside you, his presence a comfort, a gentle anchor, and though he says nothing, you sense his contentment, his deep satisfaction in this scene, in this daily ritual of evening study that he has witnessed thousands of times and still finds beautiful, still finds worthy of quiet reverence. You let your gaze wander again, not searching for anything, simply observing, simply being present, and everywhere you look, you find the same quality of peaceful concentration, the same gentle dedication. A scholar carefully rolls a finished scroll, tying it with a soft cord, placing it with tender precision back in its designated space. Another scholar rises, moves to the shelves, runs her fingers along the scroll cases until she finds the one she seeks, and returns to her seat with it cradled carefully in her arms. The patterns repeat, gentle and soothing. Read, reflect, record, retrieve, unroll, absorb, breathe, consider, understand. Again and again, with infinite patience, with timeless rhythm, the work continues, and you feel yourself being drawn into that rhythm, your own breathing syncing with it, your own thoughts slowing to match its peaceful pace. Time moves differently here, in this hour, in this space, and you have stopped tracking it, stopped wondering how many moments have passed since you entered the hall, since the lamps were lit, since the day gave way to dusk and dusk gave way to evening. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters except this present moment, this eternal now, where scholars bend over texts in lamplight, where shadows pool gently in the corners, where the air itself seems to hold its breath in reverence for the quiet work being done. You close your eyes for a moment, just a moment, and when you open them again, nothing has changed, and yet everything feels deeper, softer, more dreamlike. The flickering lamplight creates patterns on your closed eyelids, warm orange and gold, pulsing gently with the rhythm of the flames, and you realize you could drift away here, could let yourself float on this tide of peaceful concentration, this sea of gentle dedication. But you keep your eyes open a little longer, wanting to absorb more of this scene, wanting to carry it with you into sleep like a treasure, like a talisman against whatever stress or worry the outside world might hold. You watch the scholars, and you notice things you hadn't seen before. How one man mouths the words as he reads, his lips moving silently, giving voice to thoughts written down centuries ago. How a woman periodically pauses to gaze up at the ceiling, not seeing it, but looking inward, following some thread of reasoning to its conclusion before returning her attention to the scroll before her. How two scholars at adjacent tables work in perfect parallel, their movements unconsciously synchronized, both reaching for their ink at the same moment, both pausing to stretch tired shoulders at the same time. Connected by the invisible bonds of shared purpose, shared space, shared silence. The lamplight continues its gentle flicker, and you find yourself mesmerized by it, by the way each small flame dances in its vessel, fed by oil, sustained by wick, giving itself generously to the illumination of knowledge, to the preservation of wisdom. The flames are like tiny living beings, breathing, moving, never still and yet never frantic, finding that perfect middle path between stillness and motion, between rest and energy. You could watch them forever, these small bright dancers, and never grow tired of their performance, never exhaust their subtle variations, their infinite patience. The sounds continue their quiet symphony. Scratch, rustle, breathe, whisper, sigh, settle, turn, read, absorb. Again and again, layered and overlapping, creating a texture of sound that is barely sound at all, more like the absence of harshness, the presence of peace, the gentle confirmation that here, in this place, nothing demands your attention, nothing requires your tension, nothing asks you to be anything other than exactly what you are in this moment. A quiet witness, a peaceful presence, a consciousness drifting gradually toward sleep, toward dreams, toward the soft darkness that waits with infinite patience at the edges of the lamplight. Theon's breathing beside you is slow and deep, and you realize he might be dozing, might be simply resting his eyes, and you feel no need to disturb him, no need to move or speak or do anything at all. You are held here, safe in this ancient hall, surrounded by centuries of accumulated wisdom, wrapped in the gentle rhythms of evening study, and you are perfectly, completely, utterly at peace. And now the evening has fully settled, has claimed the library completely, and the great reading hall exists in that perfect state of nighttime study where the only light is lamplight, where the only sounds are the sounds of quiet dedication, where time has dissolved entirely into a continuous present that could be any evening, any era, any moment across the long history of this remarkable place. The scholars continue their work, and their patience is infinite, their focus unshakable, their peace palpable and contagious. You feel it seeping into you, feel it dissolving any last traces of tension, any remaining threads of thought that might connect you to worry or concern or anything beyond this moment, this breath, this gentle now. Your eyelids have grown heavy, pleasantly heavy, and you let them close more often now, for longer periods. And each time you open them, the scene before you is exactly the same, and yet somehow more beautiful, more precious, like a painting you've looked at 1,000 times and still discover new details, new depths, new reasons to marvel. The lamplight flickers, gentle and hypnotic, casting its warm glow across the faces of the scholars, across the surfaces of the scrolls, across your own hands, resting quietly in your lap. The light is like liquid gold, like honey, like something you could reach out and touch if you only had the energy, but you don't. And that's perfectly fine, perfectly right. You are content to simply observe, to simply be, to simply rest here in this place where knowledge is honored, where learning is love, where the patient work of understanding continues hour after hour, night after night, across the endless turning of the seasons and the years. Someone shifts in their seat. The sound so quiet it barely registers, and yet you hear it, feel it, recognize it as another small note in the ongoing symphony of evening study. Another scholar rises, moves like a shadow to the shelves, selects a scroll with practiced ease, returns to the lamplight with their treasure, and the cycle continues, endless and endlessly soothing. You hear the scratch of pen on papyrus, that sound you've been hearing for what feels like forever now, that sound that has become the sound of peace itself, the sound of patience, the sound of dedication and care, and the gentle, persistent human desire to understand, to preserve, to pass forward the wisdom of the ages. Your breathing has slowed to match the breathing of the room, and you are no longer separate from this place, no longer a visitor or observer, but part of the very fabric of the evening, woven into the tapestry of lamplight and shadow, of quiet sound and quieter silence, of ancient knowledge and present peace. Theon's presence beside you is warm and reassuring, a gentle reminder that you are held here, safe here, welcome here in this sacred space. And as your eyes close one more time, you know that you could stay here forever, could drift into sleep surrounded by scholars and scrolls and the warm flicker of lamplight, could let yourself be carried into dreams on the gentle tide of evening study, and you would be perfectly safe, perfectly at peace, perfectly held in the ancient, generous, infinitely patient embrace of the library, the forgotten library that remembers everything, that preserves everything, that offers itself as sanctuary to all who seek the quiet refuge of knowledge, the gentle comfort of learning, the deep peace of wisdom, honored and preserved and shared across the ages. And you are here, you are held, you are safe, you are peaceful, you are drifting, drifting, drifting into the warm amber glow of sleep. And as you drift, drifting into that warm amber glow, the library around you settles into the deepest quietness of night, the profound stillness that comes only when darkness has fully embraced these ancient halls. Theon has left you here, in this perfect little alcove, this sanctuary within the sanctuary, a small curved space carved into the thick stone walls, lined with scrolls on every side, their papyrus surfaces glowing softly in the gentle light of a single oil lamp. The lamp sits on a small bronze stand beside you, its flame steady and unwavering, casting a circle of warm golden light that reaches just far enough to illuminate the scrolls nearest to you, leaving everything beyond in restful shadow. You are surrounded by cushions, soft linen cushions stuffed with wool and sweet dried grasses, and you have arranged them just the way you like, creating a nest of comfort here among the wisdom of ages. Your head rests on the softest cushion, and you can feel the gentle give of it, supporting you perfectly, cradling you. Around you, the scrolls stand in their cubbyholes, rolled tight, their edges creating gentle shadows, repeating patterns of light and dark that are endlessly soothing to observe. The night is complete now, complete and deep and vast beyond these walls, but here, you are held in warmth and light and safety. The last of the scholars have retired to their quarters, and even Theon has withdrawn to his own small room somewhere in the labyrinth of the library. You are alone, but you are not lonely. You are accompanied by 10,000 voices speaking through the scrolls, 10,000 minds preserved in ink and papyrus, and their presence is a comfort, a gentle companionship that asks nothing of you. The air is still, so wonderfully still, with just the faintest breath of movement, carrying with it that distinctive scent of papyrus, that dry, slightly sweet, earthy aroma that has become so familiar to you during your hours here. It mingles with the warm smell of olive oil from the lamp, and beneath that, the cool stone scent of the ancient walls. These fragrances wrap around you like invisible blankets, comforting in their consistency. Your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of this place, slow and deep and peaceful. And with each breath you draw in the peace of the library, the accumulated tranquility of centuries. With each exhale you release any remaining tension, any lingering thoughts of the world beyond these walls. The flame of your lamp barely flickers. It burns with remarkable steadiness, as if even the air itself has decided to be still, to be calm, to rest. You watch the flame for a moment, the way it tapers to a point, the way its light seems almost liquid as it spreads across the curved surfaces of the scrolls. And you feel so comfortable here, so perfectly positioned, as if this alcove was carved specifically for you, as if these cushions were prepared with care just for this moment. The stone walls curve protectively around you, and you can feel almost the tremendous thickness of them, the weight of stone and knowledge that surrounds you on all sides. It does not press down, instead it lifts up, it holds, it protects. You are in the very heart of the library now, deep within its most quiet chamber, far from any door or window, insulated from the world by layers and layers of accumulated wisdom. And the night deepens around you and within you, and you are safe, so safe, held in the gentle embrace of this timeless place. The silence here is not empty, it is full, richly full of presence and peace. It is the silence of completion, of contentment, of everything being exactly as it should be. You can hear it, this silence. You can feel it like a texture against your skin, soft as the finest linen, warm as sun-heated stone. You let yourself sink deeper into the cushions, and they receive you. They welcome your weight, adjusting around you. And as you settle, you become aware of the subtle sounds that live within the silence, the very faint creak of the building, ancient timbers and stones adjusting to the cooler temperature of night. It is the smallest sound, more felt than heard, like the breathing of the library itself, slow, measured, eternal. And there is your own breathing, of course, gentle and rhythmic, and you notice how it seems to harmonize with the space around you, as if you and the library are breathing together, in and out, in a perfect natural rhythm that requires no thought, no effort. And occasionally, so occasionally, you hear the faintest whisper of air moving through distant corridors, through the vast chambers you walked through earlier, flowing gently through the thousands upon thousands of scroll chambers, picking up the scent of papyrus and ink and time. And some small portion of that air eventually finds its way here, to your alcove, bringing with it the essence of the entire library. And you breathe it in, this air that has touched so much wisdom, and you feel it nourish something deep within you. The lamp flame continues its steady burn. You glance at it now and then, drawn to its warm glow, and each time you look, it seems to be speaking to you in a language without words, telling you that all is well, that the night is kind, that rest is here for you, waiting, patient, gentle. The scrolls surrounding you seem to glow faintly in the lamplight, their papyrus surfaces catching the warm illumination. Some are tightly rolled, showing only their outer wrapping and the wooden or ivory pins that hold them closed. Others are slightly open, revealing just a glimpse of the text within. Beautiful Greek letters, flowing across the page in careful rows. You do not need to read them. Simply knowing they are there is enough. Simply being in their presence is a kind of communion. The wisdom they contain seems to emanate from them like warmth from the sun, requiring nothing from you, simply offering their patient presence, their silent companionship. And you feel yourself becoming part of this place, not just a visitor now, but somehow woven into the fabric of the library, as if you too are a scroll, a vessel of experience and memory, resting here among all the others. You are knowledge seeking to know itself. You are wisdom choosing to be still. And the darkness beyond your circle of lamplight is not threatening. It is restful. It is like closing your eyes, like drawing a soft blanket over yourself. The darkness holds the rest of the library in gentle suspension, preserving it, protecting it, allowing it to rest just as you are resting. And you feel connected to all of it, to every scroll in every chamber, to every word written by every scholar, to every thought contemplated in these halls across the centuries. You are part of an unbroken chain of seeking, of learning, of peaceful reflection. And that chain holds you now, supports you, and your eyelids are growing heavier, so much heavier, weighted with contentment and peace. It is perfectly fine to close them. Perfectly fine to let the visual world fade, because the presence of this place does not depend on sight. You can feel it with your whole being. And with your eyes closed, or nearly closed, resting, the other senses become more vivid, more present. The scent of papyrus deepens, becomes richer, more complex. You notice layers within it, the sharpness of new reed paper, the mellowed sweetness of scrolls decades or centuries old, the faint mineral quality of the ink that has soaked into so many pages, and the olive oil from the lamp, warm and golden and nourishing. Even the smell of it is nourishing. And underneath everything, that cool stone scent, ancient and permanent and deeply calming. These fragrances do not change or shift. They simply are, constant and reliable. Breathing them in is like breathing in peace itself, and the feeling of the cushions beneath you and around you, the gentle pressure supporting your head, your shoulders, your back, the softness receiving your weight. You notice how perfectly your body has relaxed into this space, how every muscle has let go, has released. You did not have to try to relax. It simply happened, naturally, easily, the way night follows day, the way silence follows sound. And there is a warmth here. Not the heat of midday, but the gentle warmth of shelter, of being inside, of being protected. It radiates from the lamp. It emanates from the stone walls that have absorbed the sun all day and now release it slowly through the night. It rises from the earth itself beneath the library's foundations. You are held in layers of warmth, and it soaks into you, relaxing you even further, even deeper. And time has become something different here. It does not rush or press. It does not demand or measure. Time in this alcove, in this deep night of the library, has become more like space, like a vast open room in which you can rest as long as you wish. You have all the time you need, all the time that ever was. There is no hurry, no schedule, no next thing waiting. There is only this perfect now, this eternal moment of peace among the scrolls. And you might notice thoughts drifting through your mind, gentle thoughts, lazy thoughts, like clouds moving slowly across a summer sky. And you do not need to hold on to them. You can simply watch them pass, notice them, and release them. Each thought that drifts away leaves you lighter, softer, more at peace. And perhaps images arise, scenes from your day in the library, walking through the marble corridors with Theon, standing in the vast scroll chambers, resting in the garden with its murmuring fountains, sitting in the reading hall as the lamps were lit. These memories are already dreamlike, already soft around the edges, and they blend with the present moment, past and present becoming one continuous stream of peace. And you are so comfortable, so perfectly, wonderfully comfortable. The cushions seem to be holding you with infinite gentleness. The lamp seems to be watching over you like a guardian. The scrolls seem to be standing in protective circles around you, and the night, the deep, complete night, wraps around the entire library like the most luxurious blanket ever woven, and you are at the center of it all, at the very heart, safe and warm and held. The flame of your lamp burns lower now, just a little lower, still steady, still warm, but softer than before. Its light has become even gentler, even more golden, and the shadows have grown, expanded, and they are like rest made visible, like sleep taking form. And you welcome them. You welcome the softness, the dimness, the gentle fading of the light into the kind darkness, because you know that darkness here is safe, is peaceful, is the natural place of rest and dreams and deep renewal. And in this darkness, this kind and gentle darkness, you are held, so completely held. The library holds you in its ancient stone embrace. The accumulated wisdom of centuries holds you in its patient presence. The night itself holds you in its vast and peaceful quiet. And you can let go now. Let go of holding yourself upright, holding yourself alert, holding yourself in any particular way. You can simply be held, simply rest in the holding. Simply trust the support that surrounds you. And your breathing, your slow, gentle breathing, continues on its own without any effort from you. In and out, in and out. Each breath a little softer than the last, a little deeper, a little more peaceful. And with each exhale you sink, just a little more, into the cushions, into the comfort, into the peace, sinking the way a stone might sink through water, slowly, gently, inevitably, until it comes to rest on the soft floor beneath. And you are coming to rest, settling into the deepest rest, the most complete rest. And the scrolls around you, you can sense them even with your eyes closed. Even as you drift, they are there, constant, unchanging, patient witnesses to your rest. They have been here for so long, and they will remain, and in their presence you can let go of time entirely. You do not need to count the hours or mark the moments. You can simply float, drift, rest in the timeless space of sleep. And the lamp, the faithful lamp, continues to burn, but its light is so soft now, so dim and golden and far away, like a star in a distant window, like the last ember of a fire. Warm and safe, but asking nothing of you, requiring nothing, simply being there, a small point of warmth in the peaceful dark, and the scent of papyrus, the scent of olive oil, the scent of ancient stone. These fragrances are the fragrances of safety, of sanctuary, of sacred rest, and they infuse each breath, each slow, dreamlike breath, filling you with peace, peace that goes deeper than thought, deeper than feeling, peace that settles into your very bones, into the core of your being. And you might notice that you are no longer quite sure where your body ends and the cushions begin. The boundary has softened, blurred. You are becoming part of the alcove, part of the library, part of the night, dissolving gently into peace. And this is exactly right, exactly as it should be. There is no need to hold your edges, to maintain your outline. You can soften, blur, merge with the peace that surrounds you, and sounds have faded almost to nothing. Perhaps you can still hear your breath, or perhaps even that has become too quiet to notice. Perhaps there is the smallest whisper of the building settling, or perhaps even that has stilled. The silence is so complete, so profound. It is like being suspended in the moment before the world was spoken into being, the deep, fertile silence from which all things emerge and to which all things return. And you are there, in that silence, resting, floating, dissolving, and thoughts have stopped arriving. The mind has become quiet, still as the surface of water in a sealed vessel, still as the air in these deep chambers, still as the scrolls themselves, and you are aware, barely aware, dimly aware, that you are drifting somewhere between waking and sleep, in that beautiful threshold space, that liminal zone where peace deepens into dreams. And it is so easy to let go, so natural, so right. You have been held so carefully all day, walking through the library with Theon, resting in the garden, sitting in the reading hall. And now you are held in the most complete way, held in the arms of sleep itself. And you can surrender, fully, finally, completely, surrender to the rest that waits for you, the deep, renewing rest. The sleep that heals and restores and makes all things new. and the library rests with you. The scrolls rest in their chambers. The stone walls rest in their ancient strength. The night rests in its vast completeness. Everything is at rest. Everything is at peace, and you are part of that peace. You are one with that rest. And there is nothing more to do, nowhere more to go, nothing more to think or feel or figure out. There is only this deep, soft darkness, this gentle warmth, this complete safety, this perfect peace, and you are held in the heart of the library, in the heart of the night, in the heart of peace itself. And the lamp flame grows dimmer, smaller, softer, until it is barely there, just the tiniest glow, the merest suggestion of light, and then even that begins to fade, to dissolve into the darkness, and the darkness is not empty. It is full of rest, full of peace, full of the deepest, most nourishing sleep, and you sink into it, gratefully, easily, naturally, the way you might sink into cool water on the hottest day, with relief, with surrender, with complete trust. And the cushions beneath you seem to soften even more, to become like clouds, like the softest wool, like floating on water, like floating on air, like floating on nothing at all, just floating, drifting, suspended in perfect peace. And your body is so relaxed now, so completely relaxed. Every muscle loose, every joint soft, every breath barely a whisper. You are letting go, letting go, letting go, releasing into sleep, melting into dreams. And the scrolls keep their silent watch. They do not sleep. They simply are, constant and patient and present. And in their presence you can sleep without worry, without concern, knowing that wisdom watches over you, knowing that knowledge keeps its vigil, knowing that the library protects its own, and you are its own now. You belong here. You are safe here. You are held here in the deepest embrace. And sleep comes like a tide, gentle and irresistible, washing over you, washing through you, carrying you out into the vast, peaceful ocean of rest, of dreams, of deep renewal. And you go willingly, gratefully, surrendering to the current, to the flow, to the gentle pulling away from the shore of waking. And the last thing you notice, the very last thing, is how peaceful you feel, how completely at peace, how utterly safe and held and loved by this place, by this moment, by this perfect now. And then even that fades into the soft darkness, into the warm silence, into the deep, deep rest. And you sleep among the scrolls, you sleep in the heart of the library, you sleep in the arms of ancient wisdom, you sleep peacefully, deeply, completely, held and safe and held, drifting deeper, deeper, into the most peaceful sleep, the most restorative rest, surrounded by the whispers of 10,000 voices, all of them speaking the same word, the same blessing, the same soft lullaby, peace, peace, peace. And you sleep, and you rest, and you dream, held in the forgotten library, safe in the quiet night, at peace, at peace, at peace, and you sleep, sleep, sleep. Thank you for listening tonight. If this story helped you drift off, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more calming stories. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you next time.